I still remember the sound of those church doors slamming shut, echoing like a gunshot through the silence. I was standing there in a white dress I had dreamed about for 2 years, with 300 people staring at me when my maid of honor, my best friend, came running in, her face streaked with tears. She didn't even have to say the words, but she did anyway. He's gone. Just like that. My fiancé had vanished, driving away with the very friend I had trusted to stand by my side that day. And I was left in front of everyone, bouquet trembling in my hands, feeling like a cruel joke had been played on me. The whispers started immediately, like snakes hissing in the pews. I always thought he was too close to her. Poor thing, how humiliating. My knees nearly gave out, but my mother grabbed me, her eyes flashing between fury and heartbreak. My father stood like a stone wall at her side, jaw locked, daring anyone to gawk too long. But all I could see was the empty space where he should have been, where he should have promised forever. Instead, he was probably laughing with her in the front seat of his car, speeding away from the life we'd built. I told myself to breathe, to stay upright, but inside I was crumbling. I could practically hear the gossip traveling faster than wildfire. By tomorrow, the whole town would know I was the girl left at the altar, and that humiliation hurt worse than losing him. At least betrayal could be private. This was spectacle. That night, when I finally stopped crying long enough to speak, I said something that even surprised me. I'm leaving. My parents stared at me like I'd lost my mind, but I hadn't. I'd never been so clear. I couldn't live in a town where every corner whispered my name. I needed to start over. I had money saved and a dream I'd buried to make him comfortable opening my own bakery. He always said it was too risky, that teaching was safer. But what was safe about a life built on lies? 6 months later, I stood outside a small storefront in a coastal town no one had heard of. A hand-painted sign over the door read, Sweet Haven Bakery. It smelled like salt air and possibility. The first weeks were lonely, just me, an empty shop, and the sound of waves outside. But slowly, life seeped in. A mailman who swore by my cinnamon rolls. A librarian who ordered cupcakes for her book club. High school kids stopping in after class laughing with powdered sugar on their lips. I was building something real, something mine. And then came the day that changed everything. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a tiny figure drowning inside a bright yellow raincoat. Her curls were dripping, her eyes too serious for a child her age. She couldn't have been more than 6. Do you have chocolate milk? She asked, almost whispering. I told her I had hot chocolate with extra marshmallows if she wanted. She nodded, shivering, so I made her the biggest cup I could and set it down by the window. Her name was Lila, and as she wrapped her little hands around that mug, she told me pieces of her story in a voice too heavy for such a small body. Her mom had passed when she was very little. Her dad worked long hours at the Marine Research Center outside town, and sometimes she just needed somewhere warm to be. I asked if her dad knew where she was, and her eyes filled with panic. Please don't call him. He'll be mad. My heart twisted, but I called anyway, gently, and within 15 minutes, a man burst through my door, still in a lab coat, his green eyes wild with fear. Lila, he cried, and she ran into his arms. That was my first time meeting Dr. Ethan Brooks. He looked at me with relief and gratitude so raw I could feel it. I can't thank you enough, he said, his voice shaking. He promised to make it up to me, but I waved it off. Truth was, I was already hooked not on him, but on the little girl in the raincoat, who looked at me like I had just given her the world. From then on, Lila came back. At first with her babysitter, then more and more often with her dad. She'd help me measure flour with the concentration of a surgeon, or draw pictures of dolphins and turtles to hang on the wall above the counter. She once bit into a sugar cookie I'd made her favorite purple icing on top and said, This tastes like happiness. And I swear that was the first time in months I felt like maybe I could be happy too. Ethan would swing by after work, sometimes exhausted, salt spray still clinging to his jacket. He'd sit at the table with a coffee while Lila and I decorated cookies. Slowly, awkwardly, the three of us fell into a rhythm, me, the lonely baker, him, the overworked scientist, and Lila, who somehow carried more light than either of us deserved. One night after I made dinner at my tiny apartment, Lila curled up against me as I read her a story. She looked up with those wide brown eyes and asked, "Are you our new friend?" My throat tightened as I whispered, "I'd love to be." She grinned, satisfied. "Good. You make Daddy smile more." I should have known happiness never comes without shadows. It was a Friday morning when my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in months. My chest turned cold before I even answered. Clara, the voice said, smooth as ever. My ex. The man who had left me at the altar. He claimed he'd made a mistake, that the affair fizzled out, that he still loved me. And before I could hang up, he promised he was coming. That night, he showed up at my bakery door in an expensive suit, holding roses like nothing had ever happened. "You look beautiful," he said, letting his eyes wander over the flower on my apron. "This little shop is cute, quaint, but you belong with me, in the city. We can open a real bakery, your name in lights. You're wasting yourself here." I felt the old shame rising, the memories of being judged, controlled, belittled. But I steadied myself. "This is my home," I told him. "These people, this life, it's mine." His smirk slipped, but only for a second. "You'll regret this," he said. "5 years from now, you'll be stuck here with nothing." Before I could answer, Ethan walked up behind me, concern written all over his face. My heart sank. How must this look? My past standing there polished and smug while Ethan watched from the shadows. I stumbled through an introduction, but my ex, of course, did the damage for me. "Marcus Kelly," he said, shaking Ethan's hand. "Her ex-fiancé." Ethan's jaw tightened. He nodded once, polite, and turned to leave. Panic gripped me. "Ethan, wait!" But he was gone. For days, he kept his distance, bringing Lila straight home from school, answering my calls with cold politeness. And just when I thought I was losing everything, Lila showed up at my bakery alone, tears on her cheeks. "Daddy says you might leave us," she whispered. "You're not leaving, are you? Not like Mommy did?" I knelt down, hugging her tight. "No, sweetheart. I'm not leaving. Not ever." And then Ethan pulled up frantic, ready to scold his daughter for running off. But she looked right at him and said, "Daddy, you love Grace. Grace loves us. I love both of you. That's not complicated. The honesty of a child can slice through fear better than any speech." I looked Ethan straight in the eye. I told Marcus, "No. I don't want that life. I want this one here with you and Lila. You don't have to doubt that." And finally, I saw it. The crack in his armor, the relief he'd been too scared to feel. But Marcus wasn't done yet. He barged into my bakery days later during the morning rush, roses in hand, documents waving like weapons. He sneered at the fishermen, sipping their coffee, at the old woman with her cinnamon rolls. "These people aren't your level," he declared. "You're meant for something bigger than this shabby little town." I'd taken enough. My voice shook the walls when I told him, "Get out. You don't get to decide my worth. You don't get to belittle the people I love. The biggest mistake of my life was believing you." The room went silent. Then one clap started, Mrs. Chen, my Tuesday regular. Then another, until the whole bakery was applauding. Marcus turned red, muttered something about small dreams, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I turned breathless, and there they were, Ethan and Lila standing in the doorway. Lila beamed. "Daddy, That's the man who made Grace sad. Ethan didn't look at Marcus. He looked at me. And in that quiet moment in front of everyone, I reached for his hand. I choose you, I said loud enough for the whole room to hear. 1 year later, I stood barefoot on the beach, wearing a simple dress, wild flowers in my hand. Just 20 friends gathered the ocean behind us, the sun painting the sky. Ethan said his vows with tears in his eyes. Lila twirled in her purple dress, her excitement contagious. When the pastor said, "You may kiss the bride," she tugged my dress and asked, "Does this mean I can call you Mommy? Now?" I knelt down, tears streaming, and whispered, "You can call me whatever feels right." She wrapped her arms around my neck and shouted, "Mommy, Grace," as if she'd been waiting her whole life to say it. And that's when I knew sometimes the worst day of your life is just the beginning of the best one. So tell me, what would you do if someone from your past tried to drag you back into a life you no longer wanted? Would you go, or would you fight for the family and the happiness you've built? Share your thoughts below, because I promise you, someone else has lived through the same choice. And don't forget to subscribe. There are more stories like this. Stories about second chances, about finding love where you least expect it, waiting to be told.